We have some more NASCAR drama. NASCAR has an agreement in place for one of 2311 Racing and FRM's charters, and it's not with either of those two teams. Over on the IndyCar side of things, is Red Bull Racing interested in poaching Alex Palou away from the IndyCar series? Plus, it turns out you can still have a really compelling race even if your championship has already been wrapped up. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. It turns out those Xfinity fastest lap points actually did play a factor in the final regular season point standings. Kyle Larson was able to secure third place, 2 points ahead of Chase Elliott because of the 4 points he earned for having 4 fastest laps in the regular season so far. He got back on track at Mexico and Watkins Glen, secured fastest lap in both of those races, and that was kind of the deciding factor from finishing 4th or 3rd in those regular season standings. And finishing 3rd allowed him to be tied for the points lead now that the playoffs have started, alongside William Byron, who won the regular season championship. Maybe we'll see teams put a little bit more emphasis on potentially winning that fastest lap in 2026, assuming it's still around. I guess we'll have to wait and see about that. But let's talk about what we want to talk about today, because NASCAR rolls on, and NASCAR woke up on Monday and wanted to really spice some things up because they informed the court that they have an agreement in place for one of 2311 Racing or FRM's charters to a redacted team owner or different entity. That is certainly news, and they had to legally inform the courts that they were going to do this, or they had this agreement in place. There is a hearing on Thursday where things are already going to get spicy before NASCAR even announced this. And now we have them saying, hey, yeah, we've already got an agreement in place for one of those charters, and it depends on what is ruled on Thursday, whether or not that moves ahead now or potentially not until December or something else along those lines. The teams, of course, not happy about this at all. They said that it'll cause irreparable harm if NASCAR does issue one of their charters to a different team. And yeah, there's some other things that could come out of that as well, because not only do the teams say it could put them out of business, why is it going to put them out of business? Well, one, having the money from the charter is great, but also, according to Jennifer at the AP, Tyler Reddick has served breach of contract notice. Sponsors are already starting to pull back a little bit, and all things that are going to contribute to the financial hardships of 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. Now, it is worth noting that NASCAR has contended since all of this began that those charters, the 4 charters that 2311 Racing and FRM had in 2024, are no longer theirs. They said that they are non-issued charters. That's how NASCAR views them. The other 2 charters, the one that 2311 Racing and the one that FRM had from Stewart Haas Racing last year, NASCAR views those as inactive charters because technically those charters did sign the charter agreement, where the other 4 charters did not sign the charter agreement last year. So when January 1st hit this year, NASCAR viewed those charters as being, like they said, non-issued. That NASCAR believes that they own those charters, that they are their charters to do with what they please and issue them out to new owners. Now, of course, it's been tied up in the legal system, and the teams received that initial injunction that gave them charter status, and gave them that guaranteed starting spot, had them still being paid as charter teams despite not having signed the charter agreement. Then, of course, the appeals court overturned that, ruled in favor of NASCAR. NASCAR has been treating the teams as open teams since then. And now we have another injunction hearing coming up on Thursday where the court will decide whether or not, yes, the teams do get that injunction so they can continue being treated as charter teams, or no, they'll deny the injunction and NASCAR is free to sell those charters going forward or do whatever they want with them. Of course, there's still a trial date set for December 1st, and assuming that the teams win that trial, let's just go down that road here. Let's look at that scenario. If the teams win that trial and NASCAR's already sold off those charters, well, how do you determine financial damages from that, and what do you do about that charter status going forward? I think that's where things get a little bit murky at, for sure. At the same time, if NASCAR wins the lawsuit, yeah, then I guess it's kind of a moot point, right? Like they've already issued those charges out to somebody else. They don't have to worry about doing business with 2311 Racing, FRM anymore. Is it a bad look to kind of chase Michael Jordan out of the sport? I think you can argue that it probably is. At the same time, NASCAR has their beliefs in front of them, and what the teams have is they want permanent charters, and NASCAR's like, nobody has permanent charters, so we're not going to give you permanent charters. And there's a lot of things that kind of go into this here. Obviously, this is still going to be up for a court to decide, and they're going to both have to present their sides when we get there in December. But losing those charters definitely means that they are going to, in most cases, in all likelihood, go out of business if they do not have charters for the 2026 season. So that hearing on Thursday is colossal in terms of what it could mean. And I guess we're all going to sit back and, wonder what it's going to have. Might set up the popcorn machine downstairs and enjoy this like it's going to be a movie, because I think there's going to be some fireworks in this. A lot of things are going to be redacted. Of course, it's going to be a lot of pages of black lines after black lines, because there's just a lot of information that teams don't want the public to hear or other teams to hear. And there's things that NASCAR doesn't want the teams to see and be able to read. And they talked about it on the Teardown podcast this week about how they wish they could, pull those black bars off of the redacted documents, because there's some information in there that would certainly be really, really fun to read about potential agreements between this team and that team, and how much money this is and how much money that was, and all things I think everybody would love to see, just in terms of like the different types of silly season news that we could have had, if certain things had happened. Regardless, right now, NASCAR has a deal in place, an agreement in place for one of those charters. Basically, they're looking at the 4 charters that they believe are non-issued right now. The other 2 are inactive, and NASCAR is not going to do anything with those for the time being. But the other 4, they seem to be ready to move on those immediately as soon as the court decides. And it likely won't be on Thursday that we get a decision. Probably won't be on Friday. Probably will be sometime next week. But the ball is going to start rolling, and we should be getting an answer sooner rather than later at this point. Not many F1 opportunities are probably going to pique the interest of IndyCar champion Alex Palou, but maybe one at Red Bull Racing would. According to the Indianapolis Star, Red Bull has interest in partnering Alex Palou alongside Max Verstappen in the seat that is currently occupied by Yuki Tsunoda, a 4-time American open-wheel champion with interest from Red Bull to go to Formula One. Yeah, we've heard this story before. We've seen this story before with Sebastian Bourdais when he went over and joined the Toro Rosso team, but I think this is a little bit different of a scenario here. Palou collected his 4th IndyCar championship this year. He won the Indianapolis 500 earlier this year back in May. He's got 8 wins so far. Would have had 9 if it wasn't for Christian Rasmussen driving through the field on Sunday at Milwaukee on fresher tires and picking up his first career victory. Congrats to him and that entire Ed Carpenter Racing team. Been a while since they were in victory lane, so that was cool to see for them. But for Alex Palou, maybe this is the chance that he wants. Obviously, McLaren dangled that Formula One carrot in front of him when they tried to get him to jump ship from Chip Ganassi Racing and join Arrow McLaren on the IndyCar side of things under the guise of like, hey, maybe you could eventually get a Formula One seat. And he wisely saw right through that eventually, wised up and was like, no, I'm never going to get that opportunity with you guys. Your IndyCar program is good, but it's not as good as what we have at Chip Ganassi Racing. Ultimately decided to stay at Chip Ganassi Racing. There's still ongoing litigation from that about the signing bonus that was given to him, $400,000 reportedly to Alex Palou, and then not paying that back, and then the breach of contract and everything that goes into that. But apparently in his Chip Ganassi Racing contract, though, his current one, there is a clause for an out for an F1 seat. Now, it would come with a buyout, and Chip Ganassi Racing is not any bit of a stranger to doing buyouts with Red Bull Racing. They've done one back in 2017 for Brendan Hartley when Red Bull bought out his Chip Ganassi Racing contract so that he could go over and drive that Toro Rosso car or Alpha Tauri, whatever it was back in 2017. Team changes its names so often these days, I can't keep up with it at times. But maybe this is the opportunity that Palou wants. It is a proven race-winning team, a championship-winning team coming off a driver's championship in 2024. They've won races this year, albeit it's been a struggle for them. They are certainly not the fastest car out there, and that car looks like an absolute pain in the ass to drive at times. But when you look at it from Yuki Tsunoda's standpoint, he hasn't done very well in that second seat alongside Max. Not that any of his teammates, really have, but Tsunoda hasn't scored points since Imola back at the middle of May 18th. At that point, that's also the last time Max has won, and since then, Max has only finished on the podium one time. So it's been a struggle for both cars, but Max consistently outpaces his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Now, for Alex Palou, is that a challenge that he wants? This is a guy that has risen to the occasion every single time. When he was brought over from Super Formula in Japan and got into that Dale Coyne car as a rookie, he looked really good at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and he turned a lot of heads. Then he hops in the car at Chip Ganassi Racing, and what does he do? Goes on to win a championship. Now he's racked up 4 of them in 5 years. He's won 8 races this year, and the guy just keeps resetting records or chasing records, and it's like, yeah, at some point, if he does stay in IndyCar, there, in all likelihood, he will be the all-time winningest championship driver, and he'll have the most wins all-time as well if he continues at his current trajectory. And if that's something he wants to chase, then awesome. Let's see him do it. but he's kind of checked the box on most of the big IndyCar things, right? He's got an Indianapolis 500 now. He's got multiple IndyCar championships. Maybe he wants to go chase Formula One. And maybe this Red Bull opportunity is the one for him. Obviously, with Ford coming on board next year, maybe this is a chance for them to make a switch. And maybe they want to go with a guy like Alex Palou, who is somewhat familiar to North American motorsport fans. Obviously, his 4 IndyCar championships aren't nothing to, shy at. And for Palou, he's really talented. He is a top 5 driver in the world right now. He is doing this in a spec series. He's winning 8 races. He's eviscerating his competition in a spec series. Yeah, we know that there's certain developments that you can do with dampers and everything like that. But when you look at his teammates as well, whether that be Kiffin Simpson or Scott Dixon, he's just absolutely dominating them. He's made Team Penske look absolutely pedestrian this year. Joseph Newgarden does not have a win. Scott McLaughlin does not have a win. Will Power just finally got a win at Portland, and they're probably going to fire him, which is stupid on their part. So for Palou, he's kind of embarrassed his competition, and maybe he does need to go to Formula One. Maybe we do want to go see what he can do over there. And I don't think that he's going to shy away from the challenge if he does, in fact, want to go that route, and if they do want to go that route. Chip Ganassi Racing says that they have not received any sort of inquiry from Red Bull Racing. Roger Yasukawa, who is Alex Palou's management, has also said that he has not had any conversations with Red Bull. So we'll see how it plays out, but it could certainly be a pretty interesting scenario going into 2026. Alex Palou wrapped up the IndyCar championship back in Portland, and IndyCar still had 2 races to go, one at Milwaukee and one at Nashville. And one thing that we always hear on the NASCAR side of things is if a driver wins a championship with races to go, whether that be 2, 1 races to go left in the season, then people aren't going to tune in to watch because the championship has already been decided, as if they're not handing out a trophy for a race win still. Well, IndyCar has been presented with that same scenario right now, and guess what? They had an absolutely incredibly compelling race on Sunday at Milwaukee. You had the storyline of Alex Palou. Is he going to pick up that 9th win? Can he chase that season wins record? Would he be able to do it? Turns out he wouldn't be able to do. But guess what? In that failing, you picked up another big-time storyline, that being Christian Rasmussen, that Ed Carpenter Racing team, Christian picking up his first win, ECR picking up their first win in a number of years, and it all turned out to be really compelling television, and nobody cared that the championship had already been wrapped up. Why? Because we had a pretty good race, a really good race, in fact, to watch it and tell all the fans in the stands that showed up to watch this race as well that they were there for no reason whatsoever. I hate the argument that, nobody's going to care because the driver's already wrapped up a championship. That is a really stupid way of looking at it. Did nobody care? We'll just use 2001 as a perfect example. When Jeff Gordon had already wrapped up the championship, we still had that race at New Hampshire in November. Did anybody care about that? Heck yeah, people still cared. The grandstands were still packed. People still watched on television. If there is a trophy to be handed out, people are going to still watch this race. I don't care what NASCAR's chief hype officer says. Just because the championship has been wrapped up doesn't mean that people aren't going to watch. Does not mean that people aren't going to go to the race. Kyle Busch did not make the playoffs this year. Does that mean Kyle Busch fans aren't going to go to the races that are near them in the next 10 weeks? Absolutely not. They're still going to go to the racetrack. When your favorite driver gets knocked out of the playoffs, let's just say Kyle Larson gets knocked out of the playoffs and there's still 4 races to go. Let's say he doesn't make it to the round of 8 and then won't make it to the championship race. Does that mean Kyle Larson fans aren't going to go to the race to see their favorite driver? Absolutely not. They're still going to go. People don't necessarily just watch the race because of the championship. There is still a ton of things that's going to happen from when that green flag falls until when that checkered flag falls. It is unpredictable. That's why we tune in every single week. If it was predictable, we wouldn't watch, which is kind of the reason why the Formula One ratings started to drop because of the dominance of Max Verstappen. But that's not to say that they need a playoff. It's just to say that they need to get better over there. On the NASCAR side of things, people aren't going to tune out just because a race had already been decided or a championship had already been decided with 1 or 2 races to go. They're still going to tune in to see how those races play out because, like I said, it's unpredictable. You never know what you're going to see. It's like when you go to the ballpark for a baseball game. You never know what might happen. You might see history be made in terms of some stat, some wild thing that happens. You might see a no-hitter. You might see a perfect game. You might see 20-1 or something like that. Same thing with racing here. You could see a guy win by 20 seconds, 18 seconds like SVG did. Or you can see a 4-wide finish like we just saw at Daytona this past weekend. Races are unpredictable. That's why people tune in, because they want to watch the race. The championship is certainly something they'll pay attention to, but at the same time, they're there to see who wins the trophy. So regardless of what people say, yeah, the championship does matter. People still tune in for that. At the same time, if you put a race on, people are still going to watch that as well. even though the championship has already been wrapped up. So let me know in the comments what you think about the ongoing NASCAR stuff that now is happening. Alex Palou, do you think he could possibly go to Red Bull? And do you care that the championship's already been wrapped up? Does that mean you won't watch a race, or are you still going to tune in because, well, you just like racing? Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.